everyone. Today we will be discussing the topic of elections, and in this video we'll be introducing some basic elements of elections that apply to the next few videos on voting methods. So what are elections used for, first of all? Well, the classic example that we think of is our political elections, presidents, legislators, governors, all of these things, right? But there's a lot of different things that you can use elections for. In addition to political elections, we can also use them for things like determining award winners, or even just, deciding what kind of pizza you as a group want and you vote on it or whatever, right? There's all sorts of things that you can use elections for. And along with this, there's all sorts of different ways that we can actually determine a count of the votes and use that to determine the winner of an election or the outcome of an election. So one key element of elections is, of course, the ballots. Now, there's three main kinds of ballots that we'll talk about. The first of these is what we call a single choice ballot. Now, all a single choice ballot is a ballot where you're just picking whatever is your top choice out of the options that are given. So this would be like, say you have an election with 4 candidates, A, B, C, and D. And in this case, we said we pick B as our top choice. For a single choice ballot, that's all the information that you need to provide, basically. The next type is what we call a preference ballot. And a preference ballot is basically where you have all of the different candidates or whatever it is that you're voting on, and you are going to rank all of them in order of preference. So this can kind of look a couple different ways. You can either have all of the different candidates and you write in whatever your rankings are for those candidates from 1 to all the way to 4, in this case, when we have 4 candidates, or you could have a numbered list like this where you just write in all of the candidates in order. Either of these is a preference ballot because you are ranking all of the different candidates that are on the ballot. The last type is what we call a truncated preference ballot. And this is similar to a preference ballot, except that instead of providing a full ranking of all of the candidates, we are only ranking our top however many, in this case, the top 2 out of 4 candidates. But it could be anything from that to, say you have 50 candidates and you're ranking the top 10. That would still be a truncated preference ballot because you are giving a ranking that does not include every candidate on the ballot, basically. Now, when we are dealing with the outcome of an election, there's a couple different types that we can see. Probably the most common of these is what we call a winner-only election, where we are just trying to determine one winner of the election based on the ballots that we have. The next kind is what we call a full ranking. This is basically where we are ranking all of the different candidates in the election from first all the way down to last. And then the final type is what we call a partial ranking, and this is basically where we are just picking the top X number of candidates. So say there's 10 candidates and we just want to figure out who the top 3 are, or top 3 winners of the election are. That would be an example of a partial ranking. Now, one thing that is unique to preference ballots is that we have something that we call a preference schedule. And I have an example here that we'll be looking at over the next several videos. Basically, this is for an election with 4 candidates, A, B, C, and D. And what this preference schedule basically tells us is how many voters picked each different ranking that's on the preference schedule. So say this first column, we have 9 voters, and our ranking is B, A, D, C. What this basically means is that in our preference ballot, we have 9 voters that picked the ranking B, A, D, C. Similarly, we have 7 that picked the ranking A, C, D, B, and so forth and so on. And in this case, we have a total of 25 votes. Now, this example we will continue to look at over the next few videos. There are 4 different methods that we will talk about for determining the winner and or ranking of candidates for this election. Thank you for watching. If you have questions, of course, feel free to let me know.